All right, I have returned from my week-long hiatus of being sick, of being plagued with disease that threatened my very mortal being. But somehow, some way, I have fought, I have clawed, and I have come back stronger than ever, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Really not fully healed. I'm still a little sick. There's still a little bit of pain in my voice. But, I always think of that 50 Cent movie when he got shot and he was like, my voice sounds different. And then the girl was like, I think it was the girl, yeah. She was like, it sounds better. There's pain in it. So when your voice is painful, it might sound better. But all right. Anyway, I wanted to go over some Reddit articles here. So we're gonna go into r/relationships, or we're gonna switch screens over here. And we're gonna talk about this. So this was posted about 2 hours ago by Happy Sad Girl 123. I'm sorry that you are happy and sad at the same time. Maybe you can just be happy or sad, but those emotions are not mutually exclusive. You can feel them both. You can feel a wild spectrum of human emotion, as a matter of fact. And here, I thought this was a pretty interesting one to start off with. I want to see how this goes and see if there's any interest in me covering things like this. Either way, let's get going. So, my boyfriend doesn't get me off during sex. I, female 32, have been seeing my boyfriend, male 34, for 5 months. He's the best relationship I've ever had. He shows me a lot of love and care and treats me like a princess in almost every way. In the beginning, we had a great sex life. He ensured that my pleasure was prioritized, but after about 2 months, that prioritization has waned. He doesn't make any effort to get me off anymore. He just goes until he comes and then it's over. For context, it is not challenging to get me off, and there have been no issues with it previously. Okay. I have brought this issue up to him twice. The first time he blamed my period, which I pointed out is a 5-day event. Got me off once after this and then went back to what he was doing previously. And the second time, he tried to find ways in which it could be my fault. I called him out on this, okay, and said that this was shitty behavior. By the way, just so you all know, I'm not really the best reader, so you're going to have to bear with me here. So she said it was shitty behavior. I find it really hard to bring things like this up, and he had just pretended I never said anything. And when confronted, chose to deflect. I said that if I didn't see a change, then I didn't have confidence in a future for us. He took accountability and said that he would make changes. But the same thing has happened. He's gotten me off once, and then it's just back to what it was. Is this the end of the relationship? I really don't want things to end. We have the same values, and he treats me really well in every other way. But sex is really important to me, and he obviously doesn't think what I have said is important. And I feel like accepting this would be disrespecting myself and my boundaries. Any advice? TLDR, me, female 32, boyfriend, male 34, of 5 months doesn't get me off during sex or even try to. He's perfect in every other way. I've spoken to him about it twice, but no changes have been made. And despite him saying he would, do I end the relationship? Now, this is an interesting one. Believe it or not, a lot of women find themselves in this particular situation. I actually know a real life equivalent of somebody that is like this and going through this very thing. However, they are not making it known to their partner that they are not orgasming during their sexual activities. That's okay. That's neither here or there. I'm not going to talk about them. We're going to talk about this and see what's going on here. So, before I read any of these responses, I want you to know that this young lady is indeed seeking assistance. And when you are seeking assistance on the internet, you are going to get answers. You're going to get some people that actually wrote a thoughtful response, and you're going to have others that want to see the world burn. And simultaneously, you will have those like me that will make a video response to it. Why? Not because I'm being cruel, because I actually kind of sympathize with her, and I'm going to give the best advice I possibly can. But I will warn you, okay? I want to preface this by saying that no matter what advice you get from anybody on the internet, or whether they're friends or family members, people in your real life circle, okay, it doesn't matter what kind of advice you get. You still have to make your own decisions at the end of the day, okay? You can take little bits and pieces of what people tell you and you can formulate them together. And if it makes more sense for you to leave a relationship because of this, then do it because it's something you chose to do and not because you were convinced by the herd that is called the interweb, okay? So I will say this, first and foremost, you did make it seem like you have a really good relationship. As a matter of fact, you said it was your best relationship, okay? Now, you've only been together for 5 months, so this is what is called the honeymoon phase. This is in no way, shape, or form saying that it'll get better or worse, but just an understanding that you two will get to know each other on a different level as time progresses. Because yes, indeed, you are in the honeymoon phase. You have met his ambassador and he has met yours, but the mask is slipping. Now, here's the thing. I feel like there's some information being left out here. Typically, when somebody writes a post like this or a story and they're expressing themselves, you're only going to get their perspective. You're not going to really get the perspective of the partner because, well, obviously he's the topic of the conversation. So you have to basically rely on this girl's honesty in order to get an accurate depiction of what you believe is going on here. Now, I will say this. If you've been with him for over 5 months, the relationship is not that long. So if you did decide to terminate it, no harm, no foul. You know, I doubt that you two have developed such a strong emotional connection towards where it'll be very detrimental to either of you. You know, you might both just move on with the rest of your lives and realize that, hey, you know, you had a good thing going on for a little bit, but now it's over. Or, but, you could see this in a different way. Now, you did say that this is the best relationship you've ever had at 32 years old. Now, the fact that this is your best relationship means that you have obviously, possibly not made the best decisions when it comes to the people that you're with. Now, granted, it's not just your fault because a relationship takes two to tango. You can never fully blame one person for all the events that have transpired. The reality is you both play a part in the outcome here. Now, I will say this. He did try for the first 2 months, like you said, which means that he does know how to get you off. So this isn't an issue about you not being comfortable with your own body and not recognizing what it takes to get you off. This is something that you're fully capable of doing. The issue is that after the 2 months, he got lazy, right? Or at the very least, that's what you're telling us. Now, if he did indeed get lazy, you spoke to him about it twice, which is fair. You didn't overwhelm him with this every other day where it becomes a nuisance. You know, you're kind of bringing it up sparingly because once you bring it up, he corrects the behavior, but after the behavior has been corrected, it will happen again. And it's almost as if he's like, you know what, let me get her off so that she can get off my case for a bit. And then, you know, we'll go to like business as usual. That's sort of what it feels like to me personally. I will say this. That's not to say that he's being inconsiderate. You might want to find out. There might be something deeper going on. You know, for instance, you might not be his only girl. You know, he might have other women on the rotation or men, you know, because here at Big Brother Neil's podcast, I don't really care who you're dating, okay? What matters is that you are enjoying who you are with. So have an actual conversation with him and express to him that this can be the inevitable end of your relationship if he doesn't prioritize you getting off. Now, I know what you're all thinking. Anyone that read this or that read some of the responses, you're going to think to yourself, well, wait a second. She did do that. She has told him this. You're right. She expressed it twice. Well, sometimes you got to express it more. Okay. And it's not to say that you're not articulating yourself in a way where he should be getting the point. Because realistically, what if there are other things going on? You know, when you sit with him, try to get an understanding from his perspective as well, because there might be something else internally going on. You know, is he overweight? You know, does he have low sexual stamina? Is he somebody that, you know, once he gets off, he's kind of just good for a while and doesn't really have high libido? There's a plethora of different things that could be going on that might indicate that he doesn't want to pursue giving you pleasure in the way that you want. For example, are you both clean when you're doing it? You know, are there any foul smells, any odors? Are you both hygienic? And is it enjoyable for the both of you? Are you reciprocal towards each other? You know, does he go down on you and vice versa? You know, have you discussed sexual boundaries with each other? Maybe there are things that he'd like to try and you aren't necessarily comfortable with. Have these things been discussed? Because here's the thing. I'm not going to read anyone's responses here, although I might do one or two just to artificially inflate the length of this video. But I will say this, okay? Relationships, especially sexual ones, are very complicated. They're not as simple as people think they are. No. Because only after you've been with someone for a long period of time can you dictate how that's going to go. You sort of just know each other on autopilot at one point. You know, that's really what happens, because once you've passed the threshold of time, you know, you've gotten to discover each other. But if it's only been 5 months, you probably aren't as comfortable with each other physically as you think you are. Now, granted, are you people that have sex all the time? Is your sex limited? Are you people that only see each other on the weekends? Are you everyday people that just have sex all the time? Are you an individual that has to orgasm multiple times? Or are you somebody that once you come once, you're good, you're satisfied? You know, these are all questions that weren't really expanded upon. Although there is a possibility that this was expanded upon and I just haven't read it, because this was only posted a couple of hours ago. So this is a fairly new one. And by the way, I did just join this r/relationships community because I'm interested in this stuff. And these are things that I like to talk about. Because my podcast is about lessons I wish I knew when I was younger, but this is a part of growing. This is a part of life. People do experience difficulties in their relationships, whether they be communicatory or sexual, but sexual is also very important. Let's not underestimate that. Sex is probably one of the most important pieces of a relationship, because if you're not having sex with your partner, then there isn't much that distinguishes them from being a roommate or a friend. You know, the sex is what ultimately binds you together in that relationship communion. So I'll read a couple of these just to see what's going on here. So one of the replies was, "This is who he is. He pretends for 2 months and this is the real him. If you have talked to him and he chose to pretend you didn't say anything, I don't know what do you want us to do. No one here has a magic wand to behave as a decent partner. If this is the best, quote unquote, best relationship you've ever had, maybe raise your standards." Okay, so this is pretty much, you know, you're going to do what you're going to do regardless. You can't really do much with this information that's been presented. As this person did say, you can't just wave a wand, right? So second one says, "Seriously though, one of the most important qualities one person can have for a partner is consideration. If he is not interested in pleasing you, guess what? You will soon find that he lacks consideration in other aspects of life with you as well. I think he's playing nice and so he has you hooked, because there is no good reason that any loving, considerate partner would ever even consider doing this. Be careful, OP." Okay, now this is an interesting comment here, I would definitely say, but you got to be mindful that he's a perfect partner in every other way. So he is considerate of her. They even share similar values, which is good. The sex is just where the big problem is, but we're not getting an underlining reasoning on why the sex is bad at the moment, because once again, OP didn't provide too much information. We only got a surface level of information here, so we would need more to really know what's going on here. Okay, so Firemaster says, "I mean, if sex is important, then end it. Compatibility on sex, communication, and how to spend money are the main 3 factors for relationships ending. If you don't have these 3 things, probably won't work unless you add lots of toys or something." The OP posted and replied and said, "And I guess this is 2 out of the 3 things that aren't working." Yeah, so, you know, I would just say this once more. This person is basically saying, hey, you know what? Just cut it. Just get rid of it. If it's not working, it's not working. Now, I did say at the beginning that if it has only been 5 months, you know, you can kind of cut it, no harm, no foul, right? You know, y'all gave it a good old college try and just decided that this wasn't for you. But if you really like this guy and he is your best relationship, you might want to consider a deeper level of consideration when it comes to this. Even though you don't think he's being considerate to you, once more, I find that if you sit down and have an actual conversation with your partner and you really get down to the nitty-gritty, you'll probably find something that is a barrier indeed when it comes to your sexual relationship. Just try it out. That's always the best advice I can give anyone, because once more, we only have so much that you gave us. You didn't give us too much to go on. He is capable of pleasing you because he's done it. So, you know, just keep it going. But I will say this, because I don't want this video to be too long, right? According to my algorithm, you only watch like 5 minutes of my video, so anything beyond 5 minutes is pretty much a waste of time. But If you have made it to the end, I will say this, okay? Relationships are hard and they are a lot of work, okay? You're going to meet many people in your life that you are compatible with on a physical level, some on a spiritual level, and some on everything. But one thing that you have to realize is that no matter how good or how strong your relationship is or how much you like this person, if you don't properly articulate and communicate on a constant basis, then you're not going to have a relationship at all. Because let's face it, relationships take work. You're going to have arguments. There will be disagreements. You will have trust issues. There will be times where you will feel that your feelings are not being met accordingly. And when these things happen, realize that that also exists vice versa. Because one crucial thing that a lot of people leave out when they talk about relationships is the other person. You're talking about his negative traits, but you also have to realize that he as well as is a human being, just like you are. Okay? Talk to him. There might be a hurdle that is preventing him from progressing any further. Okay? With that said, you've all been awesome. Your boy Neostarling here, up in the cut. Please feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. If you gained any value from this video, you are all awesome. And don't ever, ever let anyone tell you different. Signing off.